How's it going? Today I'll be talking to you about Andrew Carnegie. He's a man that's seen by most as a generous philanthropist and by others as a ruthless industrialist. I think the real question was, is he a really great guy, or was he truly altruistic? Were his motives clean and concise? Or was his generosity really built on the suffering of others and his workers? It's kind of difficult to place Andrew Carnegie into a single category. He gave away hundreds of millions of dollars to charitable causes like libraries, universities, and schools and museums. But he also profited off the exploitation of thousands of steelworkers. Hopefully, I can weigh those two sides kind of successfully and give a more balanced view of his legacy. Andrew Carnegie, he came to the U.S. from Scotland as a poor immigrant, and he worked his way up from a bobbin boy, which is one of the... He would wind the cotton in a cotton mill, and he worked his way up from that to the head of the largest steel mill in the United States at the time, Carnegie Steel Mill. He revolutionized the industry, so he sold his company for $480 million. But the rise was steep for him and for those that he employed, especially them. While Carnegie's empire grew, his workers toiled in extreme conditions, 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, with 1 day off a year. No safety gear, like what's nowadays mandatory by OSHA, that you have to have a protective, I don't remember what it's called, PPE, anyway, I don't remember. There was no safety gear. There were frequent accidents, and one worker put it, I don't remember what it was. I read it in a PBS article that there aren't any old men there, and that says a lot about what was going on in those steel mills. People said they were, who was it? There was a PBS, in the same article, they were talking about workers were suffering from old age at 40, which, I mean, that was kind of, people were old back then at 30 and 40, which is great. Like, that's like kind of like how it was in Victorian era. Like, people died because work was hard. The 1892 homestead strike showed Carnegie's darker side. When workers protested wage cuts and unsafe conditions, his managers responded with force. He hired armed guards, and that resulted in death and just violence among all the people that were protesting the violence and deaths that were in the steel mills. It revealed how Carnegie would go to maintain and control, what he would go through to just silence and suppress these workers. The Gospel of Wealth is Andrew Carnegie's philosophies. It's his book he published. I did read it, by the way. I did read it. He says that the rich have a moral duty to use their wealth for the public good. He says he sees himself as a trustee of his fortune. He believes that trustees need to be responsible for uplifting workers and others overall. It was definitely a visionary idea, and it conflicted with how he actually treated his workers in the workspace. His giving there's a lot of it. Carnegie donated over $350 million in his lifetime, which is almost as much as he sold the steel mill for. He funded libraries, schools, and scientific institutions, and global peace efforts, which is crazy, but and his impact is still real. Those places still exist. Like those universities are, the one, I think it's Carnegie Mellon, is still real. His impact is still felt today to a degree, and I couldn't find many other philanthropists that have given at that scale, especially at that time. So he is kind of one of a kind, but there's kind of a problem with that. His philanthropy did not directly help his steelworkers, the people that he was actually causing harm to. His donations came after he sold his company, so after he already had that money, and then he got under hot water for being a bad guy. So that's really when he started giving, because he's like, guys, look, it's okay, everything's fine. I'm using my money for good. And then he still had what? Like, I mean, he also made other money from the steel mill, and then he sold it for $480 million. So what did that leave? That left him with like some $1 million, and this is in like, yeah, $1 million is nothing to scoff at, yo. So, yeah, his donations came after he sold his company, and a lot of people see that as legacy building. It's not really accountability, but it is. It's him trying to be cool, and the workers who built that empire didn't benefit from the fortune that they created at all. They were already working, and they weren't going to go to university, or, I mean, maybe they were going to museums, but I don't know. It's a complex legacy, if you want to call it that. How should we remember Andrew Carnegie? A lot of people recognize him as someone who believed in doing good, or as someone who turned a blind eye when to worker suffering. The truth is to me, Andrew Carnegie was a man who believed in progress, but exclusively after profit. Really, only whenever he had already gotten what he needed. Overall, Carnegie's a robber baron. It's plain and simple. When you're facing labor struggles and broken bodies, you don't hide behind libraries and museums. You do something about it. Not that a lot of people have, but that's the ideal. That's the only way. He's a robber baron. If we really want to understand that history honestly, you need to recognize that he was not a good guy. Thank you for listening.